What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans, and actually general NFL fans, because we're talking Senior Bowl prospects. On this episode, we are talking 5 defensive linemen to watch at the Reese Senior Bowl starting this weekend. And look, there's these 5 guys. There's a lot of different interior guys that have been mentioned. Now, it's interesting depending on like where you get your draft information, where you get your sites. Sometimes anyone on the D line will be considered an interior defender. Other times when usually people are talking about edge, they're talking about linebackers or the edge rushers in a 4-3 defense. But of course, the Steelers play 3-4 defense. So really, when we're looking at the draft prospects, we're talking about interior defensive guys when we're talking about guys on the defensive line. Now, these 5 guys that we're going to talk through, pretty interesting. They're kind of ranked all over in terms of where their sort of mock draft rankings are, or where their PFF ratings are, or where their sports reference ratings are, or where their Pro Football Network rankings are. Kind of all up and down. Obviously, that chops and changes throughout the draft processes. But we do have a bunch of guys that basically on this 5 that I'm talking about today on the show that range from all the way from the 6th, 7th round into the 1st round as well. So that's a good segue into kicking off with our first player. So we're going to kick off with Keith Randolph Jr. out of Illinois. Now, this guy's a 5-year experienced vet, so obviously COVID eligibility year comes into play here in 2020, considering he only played 3 games that year as well. This is a guy with 10 sacks. If you look on PFF, I think he's got 9.5, because PFF, as everyone knows, doesn't count half sacks. 23 tackles for a loss in his career so far. 2 interceptions as well on defensive line. Played it for a pretty good Illinois team. And he's kind of moving up the boards as it goes. So it'll be interesting to see where he falls on draft day. I think right now, PFF have him rated in like 197. I think he will make Jeremiah's top 150. I think he might even make the top 100 because of what he does at the interior defensive line position. But yeah, as I say, this is a guy with 10 sacks, well-experienced guy throughout the course of his career, played the best part of, 40 college games. 10 sacks, that's pretty decent from a bloke like that production on that team as well. Not like he's going to have huge help around him, although it has been a pretty good Illinois defense the last couple of years. Had a forced fumble as well. He was ranked number 3 in the Big Ten for tackles for a loss in 2022, so that's an award that he has. But yeah, he's a guy that I think I'm interested to see him at the Senior Bowl, how he can go against some of the top offensive linemen, which we've talked through in our last show on this, so you can go check that out on the channel. But yeah, really interested to see how he performs, because it's a guy that could, through a successful draft process, could move him from anywhere. I think if he's like a 4th, 3rd round pick right now, well up above that. But we'll see. As I say, the process will be very important for him. The next guy I had on my list is Tyler Davis. Now, Tyler Davis is someone that, again, you kind of see all over the place in like mock drafts. You see him all over the place in the rankings. PFF have him ranked at 117 on their draft board in terms of blokes. So that's kind of, I think, interesting. You're talking about like anywhere between a 3rd and a 5th round guy here, depending if someone really likes him, particularly has a need going into the 2nd. I'll be interested to see how he tests in terms of, or measures in height and weight. They have him at 6'2" and 300 pounds on PFF, which is exactly the same as Sports Reference has. So with that being the case, Sports Reference being Pro Football Reference's college site, that's probably pretty accurate. And if so, really interesting sort of from the Steelers. Steelers do like bigger defensive linemen. But in terms of nose tackle, we've seen Javon Hargrave sort of play at the same height and weight. This is a guy with 16 sacks. I think PFF have him at 13, 14 again. They don't count the half sacks. And he's had 4 seasons, in college where he had half sacks. Now, he had a very good year in 2019. I remember him being there. I thought he was going to come out in 2022. Was thinking about it in 2021. Obviously, had the COVID year of eligibility. I think that helps him in terms of his draft stock this year. I think he would have been lower last year than what he is this year with the interior defenders that were around. But 30 tackles for a loss, 16 sacks, huge from him, 3 pass defense, no forced fumbles and no interceptions. But he's definitely a guy that is really produced while playing for Clemson. And so I think you got an experienced 6-year vet in college, 5-year vet in college. You got a guy with 16 sacks there. Literally, again, he's played the best part of 60 games, 16 sacks. That's pretty good. So you're talking about a guy that's getting them every 3 to 4 games, getting a sack on the interior. That's pretty good production from a good college generally. So you've got performance, production, then it comes down to pedigree and potential. I think he's got pedigree, and you can say that. So then it's around potential. But if the Steelers were to pick this guy up in the 4th, you'd be absolutely cheering. I think that would be a better steal than getting Darnell Washington. I mean, Steelers didn't really use Darnell Washington this year apart from blocking, but I think it would be better for the Steelers in terms of an overall pickup than what we saw out of the. Well, actually, we got Darnell in the 3rd, but yeah, if you got this guy in the 3rd, you'd still say it was better than getting Darnell. But it would be like cool, like if you got them in the 4th, like a Nick Herbig pickup. The next guy on my list, I'm keen to watch him just from the pure perspective of him being a Texas Longhorn, but also if for whatever reason he slips down the board and he was available in the 2nd round, the Steelers would have to be with Cam Hayward where he is, assuming he's back on roster, which I do think he will be. He does have that year of contracted. This is a massive bloke who Bucky Brooks has this guy going in the top 20 right now. So I might be just keen to see him because he'll be a Texas Longhorn, not because he might be able to be drafted by the Steelers. But 6'4", 360 pound. Now that's backed up as well. They have him at 340 pounds, 6'4" on Sports Reference. He will test probably he will definitely be 330 and above. I think you'll see this guy at 345, 350. He will be massive bloke. This is a guy. Now, the thing is that he's only got 5 sacks. So you're going to go off that size and that pedigree playing for Texas. But you got to look at the way the Texas play. They've got another defensive lineman in this mix in Byron Murphy, who's predicted to be a 1st-round pick as well. You look at some of the way they rush their linebackers, the way they rush their other edge rushers. His job is to swallow up the run. Now, he has 17.5 tackles for a loss as well. He had 8 in 2023. Again, a 5-year starter, experienced guy, 13 pass defenses. With that height, that size, no surprises there probably, but 13 is a significant number of pass defenses. 3 in 2021, 4 in 2022, 4 in 2023. So pretty big numbers from him. Only has 1 forced fumble that he's on his career as well, but 127 tackles. That's a lot of tackles for a defensive lineman in college football. So really excited to see how his draft stock goes. Selfishly, I'd love him to slip for the Steelers. But again, if there's a run on that, if for whatever reason Cam Hayward wasn't back, the other idea about getting I know the Steelers really need a tackle, but if they don't like having the tackle prospects on the board, you get a guy like this on the defense with the 5th-year option at pick 20, or if you trade back later into the 20s, maybe this guy comes a part of it. Anyway, I'm keen to see what he can do at the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl. Getting ahead of ourselves there. The next guy we have, and I'm probably going to get his name wrong, is Justin Bergbay. Now, he is a really interesting guy in terms of he comes from Bama. I've seen him all over the place in terms of the different mock drafts and the draft boards. I think PFF had him in here in the 80s originally, but I think they've got him listed more as the edge rusher. Yeah, so I've only got the interior guys listed right now. But yeah, kind of an interesting character in terms of what he could be from the Steelers. Why am I interested in watching this bloke? Yeah, so I'm interested in watching it because of the Bama part. Like, I think that there's the pedigree with that. He's been on a really important, like a really big, successful defense there. But I also think when you look at that, I mean, yeah, he's not on that board right now that I can pull up in front of you. But the thing for me is he's another guy with about 10 sacks, 120 plus tackles on the D-line, 16 tackles for a loss, which I think is huge. I think tackles for a loss are very underrated on defense. I've heard Luke Kuechly say that a lot of times. Pass defense, he's had 3 of them. Just a guy that, when you're playing with that pedigree, the Steelers like drafting out of the top colleges. They have drafted a lot out of Bama over the course of the last 5-10 years as well, if you actually go back and look at it, or schools that play in the SEC at least. And so I'm interested to see what he can do because, again, if he can have a good showing, he does play against top offensive linemen in the SEC. So if he can have a good showing, this is a guy that could rocket up the boards. But he's someone that I just really want to see go up against those top offensive linemen. That's why I put him on the list. And the next guy is Braden Fisk out of Florida State, who actually played most of his career at Western Michigan. Now, that's an interesting one. We know the Steelers have drafted out of the ACC recently, including Kenny Pickett. We know they like the MAC. The Steelers are famous for liking the MAC. Now, Braden Fisk, I think he's ranked number 90. Yeah, 90 on Pro Football Focus, PFF's draft board rankings. I've seen him all over the place again on Pro Football Network. on some of the different other, draft sort of situations, mock drafts, sites, rankings, all those different things. I think this is a guy, again, is one of those guys that not many people necessarily know about, that hits the Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, top 150, maybe even higher. He might be a guy that surprises through this process. This is the sort of guy that, from a maybe a lesser known guy from a smaller conference in college that then makes a name for himself through the draft process, through Senior Bowl. We saw that like last year with Cody Mock, for example, who could play all over the O-line. This is that guy for this year, in my opinion. He could be this guy. So he's had 191 tackles across his college career, 36 of them for a loss. When you make that many tackles, it helps. Again, another guy that's factored in with COVID, a year of eligibility. 19 and a half sacks. If you look up on Pro Football Focus, I think he's got 16 because, again, they don't count those half sacks. 3 pass defense, 3 forced fumbles. Had some pretty productive years the last 2 years. 12 tackles for loss in 2022, 9 this past season. 6 sacks both seasons, 3 forced fumbles, all came in 2022. Definitely, and then 3 pass defenses that year. So he had a really good year for Western Michigan in 2022. That made him eligible for Florida State. We saw Florida State, unfortunately, they had a really, really good year. Didn't scope in the college football playoff or anything like that, but he is a guy that definitely has gone and put himself against better competition. And so now he gets a chance to put himself with better competition on the draft stage through the draft process. Now, I talk about size. He's another guy that's like 6'3", 300 pounds. They had him, I think, at 6'2" on PFF. No, they got him at 6'5". Sorry, I lie. I was thinking back to Tyler Davis. But I sort of think you will get a guy 6'4". They got him at 297 there. You'll see him in the early 300s, I think. He'll probably, if he is more that 6'4", 6'5" mark than 6'2", 6'3", you will see him probably a little bit over that 300. They'll want to pack on that muscle. He'll want to look really good. He'll want to do well on the bench. That'll be really important for him, I think. So I'm kind of keen to see what he can do as well. But yeah, they're my 5 defensive linemen to watch at the Reese Senior Bowl. It's going to prove to be pretty cool. We're going to have 3 more shows out on Senior Bowl prospects. We're going to do linebackers and punters together. Kind of interesting. There's a punter from Iowa that I'm keen on that we'll talk about. We're going to do a wide receiver and tight end show. And we're going to do running backs, quarterbacks. I'm going to get all that out between now and Saturday night when things kick off at the Senior Bowl. We've also got Steelers Global Perspective coming this weekend as well that I do with Shannon White. That'll all be broken up. So nice bite-sized content for you. And we might even do a live show on the channel too in the next 24 to 48 hours. But hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. If you're not a sub to Steelers TDU, even if you're from another team and you like hearing what we're talking about draft prospects, we're going to do a heap of draft content and free agent content between now and the close of the draft. And then we'll be doing draft analysis and all those good things. It's probably something interesting for you on the channel too. So yeah, hit that like button, hit that sub button. If you've got any other questions, comments about these guys, throw them in the comment section. Always appreciate it. And as always, go Steelers.